Welcome to Exploration Session Summaries. Exploration sessions are offered online as opportunities to speak and listen to each other in a sincere effort to gain understanding about each other's perspectives on a World Conference resolution. This podcast includes all small groups summaries on one resolution.
We thought this was a really good idea because there was a number of reasons. One was I remember when in 2023 when they were talking about doing the translations of French and Spanish for the Doctrine and Covenants and for the Book of Mormons, and or not so much the Book of Mormon, but the Doctrine and Covenants. And so this would make it a lot easier for them to do that. And also, if things are online, it makes it easy access for seekers as well as members to be able to access things online rather than going through Herald House or through Seminary Press. You can get things online there too, but it's a little bit more convoluted than just looking into a search engine and going into that. So I thought it might be a little bit easier. Also, we talked about how as long as there's some restrictions on the copyright thing, because it did say that people could edit or take things out of it and use it for other things. And I think that's awesome if you're using it for a sermon or whatever, but you wouldn't want to change it out of context. And you want to make sure that you're not using it inappropriately. I guess that's not fair to say, but you know what I hope you understand what I'm saying. But sort of to be able to use it and keep it authentic to what it was originally written when you start sharing it and stuff. So that's all. That was the only kind of hesitation that we had about it. But otherwise, I'm sure that if it is going to go, probably that would be considered. It took a while to read it through and get clear on what exactly that was asking. And we also said that it presents an opportunity that the copyright that we have presently has some restrictions. So this makes it a little bit easier.
There's been confusion, and we talked about that, and sometimes guilt because we didn't know how to operate with this whole system. And we also shared experiences of using materials and being covered with the CCLI and CCLV programs. Also, we talked about open access, which is used sometimes in scientific materials. But we really had more questions than we had answers. Like, how would we fund it? Would it change items that were previously produced? And we also wanted clarification on using things that are available from beyond the walls or from other places. So we didn't have any answers. We were generally for it, I think.
In our group, there was a lot of agreement around being pleased that the leadership was being asked to look at the possibility without mandating any specific action. So that provided some flexibility. Some of the issues that we really were hoping to consider more fully and get more information on, for example, was the issue in the background materials about the cost of copywriting. We really don't know what those costs are today. Do we actually file copyrights, or do we simply have our materials automatically copyrighted as under US law by the fact that we just, have written it down on paper or whatever? So what are the costs that we're currently incurring for that? We also liked the discussion around the issue of translations and how that could possibly provide a way to make materials more easily available in other languages without a lot of permission requirements and legal restrictions. That was appealing, but something to be investigated and understood better. There was also a lot of concern about adaptations currently by members and congregations. We've talked a lot about worship helps and class helps and those kinds of materials. And there was some understanding that those might be differentiated from Herald House books and things like that. We also brought up the issue of how this might make it possible for adaptations for those with learning differences or who are neurodivergent in terms of the ways that they understand and learn new materials, and that could be a benefit as well as the ability to create adaptations. So those were some of the things that we talked about, and I don't think we necessarily made final conclusions or positions, but wanted to learn more.
We agreed that we liked the greater access and the accessibility. We were concerned that there's not the ability to get good education now, and that we were hoping that if this were to come about, that there would be better education and resources available for those. And we were a group of mostly AV for our congregations. So we were very much a proponent for, if this does happen, we're very much hoping that there's better resources and better education available. We did touch on what are the ethical needs of keeping the copyrights the way they are, and what could they be by changing those copyrights. We were concerned also that that our catalog of available materials under our current copyrights could shrink if we move to that type of copyright. We're hoping that it very much does cover more than just hymns, more than just worship helps, more than just classroom materials, but it could also cover our Bible, our other scriptural works. But one of the questions that we raised, or one of the two questions that we kept kind of coming back to, is what access would non-church members have to this material? Especially referring back to that material that was created specifically by the membership for the church. We're concerned about what resources this would take from World Church for someone or a group of someone's to have to now get off of a different project that's currently in the works to go through the works catalog that we currently have copyrighted on, and how that would either play out as, yes, this goes, no, this doesn't go, or would this be we're moving all of our catalog that we personally own as Community of Christ under this copyright? So we kind of came to the conclusion of this resolution starts a conversation, but it's not really there yet as to the meat of what this should be.
Some of us are first-time conference attendees, so we just wanted to be informed on all of these resolutions as much as possible. And for this one, we talked about being a good steward over the expense of copyright compliancy for congregations. We have many questions about this, and also questions about being legally compliant with copyright. For this particular resolution, we think that more clarity is needed to make sure we are what we are voting for. There needs to be some more background information, we think. Resources and education are needed to help us understand what congregations are allowed and not allowed to do right now. But we do think that more use of church publications in other languages will be good. And that's about all.
We had interesting discussions. We thought that this was a very complex issue for a very short resolution. We had more questions than we had answers. We do need to understand the current copyright laws, and this might complicate matters. We do need to understand what the Creative Commons licenses are and what the ramifications of having those licenses would be. We found out that there were 6 kinds of licenses used, everything from public domain to you can use it but don't change it at all, to giving ability to change it, to most of them said you couldn't use it for commercial use, but there were 6 different ways, and that's probably pretty hard to understand and make everybody understand. What kinds of costs are associated with getting a license? We thought that one thing that might be helpful in other cultures, or to other cultures, is if you had a license that would allow you to take a work and pass it through a translation program, that we would get translation into other languages quickly. But that would probably have to also have the kind of thing that would allow you to adapt it to the culture of the people, to adapt it to their culture, and the effort of the time and approval that would be needed, and human resources to tackle the issues of which particular things would be put under common licenses, and whether it would be historical items or things that were just from the last few years or starting right now. We thought there might be problems if people outside the church modified, and we'd have to make sure that modifying and adapting had good rules to it. If somebody from outside the church wanted to take one of our things and use it, whether we would have any ability to consider what kind of changes they made. It's just a really very complex issue, and we don't know what the ramifications are.
A lot of the stuff you've already said, we've heard. Just heard a couple things that I just gone through my head that Jackie was just saying, which we'd not thought about. We're concerned about, more the details of what's really going on behind this thing here. I thought before we started this thing that it was a fairly cut and dried thing. It's not. So we're concerned about copyright issues, whether or not there'd also be training on making sure that we are doing things properly. We were hoping that this will improve our outreach throughout the world. In other words, if we have things that are available online that have our logo on it, that maybe people will see it and be impressed and think, okay, maybe we should check this place out. We did question it, same as others, whether or not we would be financially better off, like how much is the cost going to be to do this. We were hoping it would give us a more unified message throughout the world, concern about, how it becomes across different languages and a platform. Might have been concerned about whether or not if it's something is translated to another language, as they said, whether or not it really fits the wording right to what was originally intended, and whether or not it fits with the culture. We thought that maybe getting permissions to copyright the stuff might be very time consuming, and wondering whether or not, if once we start having some things online or the content, whether or not it might be a way possibly to get around or have problems with censorships in other countries where they're, limiting what kind of content is available to their citizens. I think that's more or less what we had.